The rules for getting residency by investment in the Dominican Republic have just changed. And the reason why is awesome. But the problem is the government hasn't been very clear on exactly why, creating a ton of frustration for people who are in the process or who want to apply in the future. But today, I'm going to share with you exactly why the changes are being made and how you still can get residency and eventually citizenship by investment in this country. And I'm going to tell you what the government has not shared as to why the changes you're seeing are being made. Let's dive in. If you're new to the channel, my name's Gruber. I quit my $400,000 executive job in 2021 and moved with my family down here to Punta Cana in 2022. And I share all about life, investing, and the economy in the Dominican Republic here on this channel. So what's the deal? Until recently, a $200,000 investment in a piece of real estate here in the Dominican Republic got you the pathway to residency and eventually citizenship. Many countries have programs like this, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. But recently, things changed, but in fact, they stayed the same. Let me explain. Immigration was allowing people to buy a piece of property for $200,000. They could put it in their name, and with that would get a pathway to residency. But then things got a little wonky, and the Dominican Republic said, you know what, that's too easy, so we're going to do something a little different. We're not going to change the regulations, but we are going to increase that $200K to $500K with Confotor. Confotor is essentially a tax incentive for buying real estate here, where you can waive the transfer tax at purchase and 15 years of property tax on a property. The thought process seemed to be, if we go from $200K to $500K, that'll clear out a lot of these applications for residency, right? Wrong. People were like, okay, cool, I'll just go to $500K. And now both of these are gone. Well, at least in terms of buying it in your name. And instead what you have to do is take $200,000, start a business, and that, my friends, is the real pathway to residency. But let's get deeper on this. Oh, and then I can't wait to explain why this is happening. I don't know why the government hasn't said this. Let me be clear on this first. The law has actually always said that the $200,000 investment to make that you get residency with is actually into a business, not into real estate. But they got loose with it. They said, okay, hey, whatever. Even if you buy a property, $200K in your name, we'll go with the pathway to residency. But what the law actually says is $200,000 investment in the country, and then to prove that $200,000 investment, you need to show your documents indicating that you have a business. In the Dominican Republic, the most common business is called an SRL. It is nearly the exact same thing as an LLC for Americans. It's a limited liability company. In fact, it stands for Sociedad Responsabilidad Limitada. Haha. Yeah, this is pretty good. If you're new to the channel, I'm still getting the Spanish thing down. But it's the same principle. It's a limited liability company that you can start so that you can create a business here. The tax rules are different, but similar structure. So really all the Dominican Republic did recently is return to the original intent and reading of the law. So rather than $200,000 buying a property in your name, today what you need to do is take $200,000, open a company here, invest the $200,000 into your company, and then at that point, you've got a pathway to residency. And then of course, with that $200,000 or more, you can go out and buy whatever property you're going to buy. So it's kind of the same thing, but it's through an entity. And I tell you, the reason why is so simple, it's so good, it makes sense, but it hasn't been communicated. A quiet but major push by the Dominican government to strengthen their passport is to get access for the Dominican passport holder to Schengen nations. Schengen nations is pretty much the EU. So in other words, what the Dominican Republic wants is for any passport holder to be able to go to the EU 90 days visa-free, just like any other person in the world could. Just like an American could, or other countries with access to the EU can do as well. Right now, a Dominican cannot do that. You cannot use your Dominican passport and simply fly to Paris or fly to Madrid, but the objective is to do that. The EU has become very particular about issuing that access and has a set of requirements that the Dominican Republic is currently executing. If you're familiar with DR, you may have seen this recently. There's electronic passports. There's a brand new cédula, which is like a national ID. Even the driver's licenses, those are changing, all to conform with the EU and the Schengen policies. But one of the big ones that the EU is currently really pushing back on are nations that have too open a CBI policy, CBI being citizenship by investment. Right now, there are 5 Caribbean nations that have access to Schengen with the passport, and all of them have a residency or citizenship by investment path. Here they are right here: Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia. If you have a passport from any of these countries, then you can go to the EU 90 days visa-free. But the EU has essentially said, well, hey, look, here's the problem. If you got a country like the Dominican Republic where we have not approved their passport holders to come to the EU, a rich enough Dominican can pop into St. Lucia, buy a $200,000 property, really no investment in the country. They just buy the property property to get the passport, and boom, they can come to the EU, no problem. You're making it too easy for countries that we haven't approved for them to buy a passport and come to the European Union. So the EU has gone to these 5 nations and said, look, your CBI program, Citizenship by Investment, needs to go away by June 2028. So this is why the Dominican Republic is starting to sunset its current looser policy on residency by investment because it is dying to get Schengen access, even if you don't see it in the news all the time. In fact, the outgoing foreign minister, Roberto Alvarez, look at these articles. There's a few of them where he's talking about Schengen access for Dominican passport holders as a key objective, because it does. It strengthens the passport. It strengthens citizenship in the Dominican Republic. And all of these things you're seeing in the news, reform around the penal code, fiscal reform, all the formalization of different documents. One of the major objectives of all of that is Schengen access. The other major objective is formalization of the economy, which allows the Dominican Republic to get from speculative grade credit rating to investment grade credit rating. That just opens up a whole host of possibilities economically for the country. So all of this serves both Schengen access, EU access, and better credit rating. But again, you won't hear the Dominican government talk about that. Now you might be saying, Jamie, it sounds like you're reading tea leaves, and I totally agree. So I reached out to some immigration attorneys to present my tea leaves to them and just see, hey, am I overthinking this? Am I overreading the organization or the mindset of what the Dominican government is trying to do? And the answer I got was, actually, no, you're spot on. In fact, one of them said, I'm really surprised by your ability to pick that up, which I was a bit insulted by. Am I not intelligent enough to read tea leaves? I may look stupid, but does that mean I have to be stupid? Am I not allowed to look into things and come up with conclusions on my own? Huh? In fact, for more proof of this, I did have an immigration attorney come in and speak to my inner circle recently and went through that exact scenario, which she validated. So I have witnesses that what I'm saying right now isn't just some fluff off the top of my head, but it's validated with a real attorney saying, yeah, that's actually exactly what's going on. So what all of this means is you can still make that $200,000 investment in the Dominican Republic and still get your residency. And soon, hopefully, that residency and eventually citizenship gets you a passport, and that passport allows you access to the EU. That would be a major win for the country and a major win for all passport holders. Look, there's no guarantee of this. You know, who knows what the chances of it are, but the country is making moves specifically so that they can get that access for its citizens. The reality is this: no place is perfect, but you can't ignore that the economy has grown, most recently 6% year over year, that GDP per capita is up, that income per capita is up, poverty rate is down, still too high, but down. There is a much more robust middle class that exists here in the Dominican Republic than ever did before, and this country is in the developing country phase, not third world. All of these increase the chances that getting access to the EU visa-free could happen. Beyond that, there are multiple other ways for you to get residency. There's the pension route, marriage route, if you're the child of a Dominican, and more. Listen, I'm not an attorney. Apparently, I'm not smart enough to be one. I'm sharing what I've learned and what I think, but truly talk to a professional. And if you need help with that, you can scan this QR code to get access to an attorney I would recommend if that helps you. So do that. Then watch this video, which will give you a little bit more insight into life in the Dominican Republic and hopefully helps you out if you're making the decision to either move or invest here. Now I'm going to go enjoy that beach. See you on the next one.